Synergetic Journal video of my individual continuous non-political manifesto, May 3rd through May 4th, 2026. Acknowledging the relevant set, the closest approach to eternity and God, Part 10. Christina Herlifson's ongoing Synergetics research project. When it comes to the relevant set, synergetically speaking, evolving metaphysical intellect as an anticipatory design science researching function of Omnirational Universe does not first off have to relinquish acquire knowledge of the tetrahedron when consciously anticipating an economical solution, primarily because the very cogitative thought of it, whatever that may be, naturally is an integral, interaccommodating, intertransacting first principle, which technically, literally, integratively, and conceptually initiates a newly conceived structural system in its own right. This cannot be said about the false premise PRJMWBSHM that historically compels compromising our humanity's natural inclination to cooperate within a coexisting communicating community of like-minded evolution necessity to support all life as a consciously coordinated essential, highest prioritized value. Compelling anyone's hesitantly induced compromises typically correlate with someone's grand strategy that serves the mastermind's controlling slave mentality interests, which historically are self-serving manipulations of the universal communications process that for centuries non-transparently has been operating, thus by forcefully excluding whatever is discovered of a potential newly implemented economic initiative cosmologically intending supplanting the unaccountable schemer's footholds on the power of its obsoletable, irrational politics, religions, justices, militaries, and wars, predominating factors of the PRJMWBSHM contextual parameters, all of which are not structural systems of metaphysical physical universe in their own right, but nonetheless position their authority to survive against all odds despite the heavy cost to human life while paying lip service to feigned loyalties to the people who en masse have no informed awareness of their individual alternative options that become clearer. The more the Synergetic's conceptual formulations are understood, replete with the minimum structural system as the relevant set, which is the tetrahedron. We can remind us to recollect Bucky Fuller's definition listed under thought found in Synergetic's dictionary, The Mind of R. Buckminster Fuller. In quotes, thought equal relevant set equal insideness and outsideness equal 4 stars equal tetrahedron, end quote. So estranged is anybody by educated ignorance from awareness of this relatively simple conceptual formulation, it is almost embarrassing, referring to its topological characteristics, much less to correlate one's individual economic initiatives and thought as the long-missed relevant set, before it was discovered in the 20th century that in principle must always have been almost at the tip of one's tongue, the nib of one's pen, long before computer technology became essential as a time-saving communication tool for all humanity, everyone in the world. Even the computer engineers at the outset of the internet seem to have shunned metaphysical physical universe as minimum structural system in their long-range algorithmic strategies and Bucky Fuller's discovery of nature's coordinate system, veering off into differently controllable computing that turns out to be a mistake. The ramifying culminations play out on the world stage as emphatic war games facilitate the obsoletable, illogical, unreasonable PRJM factors that, on second thought, need not be totally dead in the water, but can be refined referentially to nature's coordinate system. Doing so requires dismantling the most egregious enmity state, which without doubt are the Islamic mindsets who at the outset of its competitive strategies emulated the Christianity models that also can be refashioned without causing more ignorantly promoted divisiveness between communities of people, which fosters biases of every ilk. In truth, humans depending only on trial and error explored survival stratagems in support of all life is not the same as threatening death to all who oppose an ill-advised point of contention. Yet, the Islamic networks of deception are addicted to the miscalculation when its mentality decided to take an opposite direction direction inversely, figuring winning with death versus life and with no end in sight to its illogical thought process so long as people play designated roles with a profit and a law factored in to impose absolute obedience to the supreme leader. So there is every logical reason to disembarrass us from knowing more about conscionable concerns pertaining to eradicating from the earth what turns out to have been a copycat version of the mistaken solution by Pontius Pilate, the governor of Rome, to crucify Jesus Christ. In truth, Jesus Christ, the man, by today's psychological standards, would have been diagnosed as a mentally disturbed personality who offended the governing authority by promoting his persona special powers as God that seems to have been popularized into the one and only Son of God, but who, nonetheless, impressed humans at that time and place with loving intentions to heal the miserable. Speaking of the miserable, a sonnet by American poet Emma Lazarus, written in 1883 to raise funds for the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty, iterated concerns for the miserable, pleading, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." The miserable have always been subjected to some version of the reenacting articulations from the womb of permitted ignorance that insists on categorizing humans into races and classes to worsening degree. As utter outcasts, more than 160 million people in India are considered untouchable. People tainted by their birth into a caste system that deems them impure less than human is an example case. These asymmetric extremes are among many subtle nuances related to income or no income statuses anywhere in the world. The fiction writer Les Miserables, written by Victor Hugo, published March 31st, 1862, conveys aspects of the PRJ, politics, religion, justice factors without pinpointing the overall matrix from whence the underlying ignorance derives and continues to be suffered upon humans on Earth. Until recently, humans on Earth were not apprised of the relevant set. In any event, wherever police, prisons, crime, and punishment play out, so too do the PRJ aspects of the belief system's hierarchical matrix. Let's not forget that aspects result in cases, and special cases are always physical, time, size, frequency within the analyzable contextual parameters that are obsoletable, alas. Reading about Pontius Pilate in Wikipedia makes it obvious that history facilitates favorably and or unfavorably opposite sides depending on whose axes to crime requires sublimation. So having a conceptuality of the energy system, knowing energy is neither created nor ever lost in universe and is eternally conserved, corresponding with awareness of UIVMOFCH, universe, isotropic vector matrix, operational field, cosmic hierarchy, symmetrical form, tetravolumes, and quantum modules, illustrated in Synergetic's color plate number 9, clearly are more economic when first things first permits eliminating histories of conflicting values, all of which apparently trace back to the womb of permitted ignorance, as our contemporary awareness learns from Oxford University Press Dictionary and Thesaurus that the word womb is synonymous with the word matrix from Latin mater, mother. Two matrices, the PRJMWBSHM and the UIVMOFCH, give our 21st century generations a comparison network environment that heretofore was impossible for reliable cogitative realizations in respect to equilibrium. Imagine being informed of the always and only coexisting complementarity, equilibrious and disequilibrious as an essential information tool that was never relevantly connected to anticipatory realities, while the PRJWBSHM factors for centuries have played havoc with our humanity's individual psyches, perspectives, philosophies, and personalities, expecting to manifest relatively balanced states of mind as normal adaptations to those illogical forms. Could the PRJMWBSHM default slave mentality conditioning have everything to do with the increasing numbers of psychological problems, the psychotic behaviors that induce use of drugs and crimes related to such addiction. The dependence on the addiction is not lost to Communist China's intention to produce and distribute fentanyl as a weapon against any nation, the United States in particular, where overdoses through September 2025 was approximately 76,516 for the 12-month period from April 2025. C. Fentanyl Crisis 2026, how Chinese precursors reach America. Overall, assessing awareness of the opioid crises and reversal agents and other drugs will always conclude these are not natural to our species, humans of a mind, but seem connected to as yet discovered correlation to what historically ignores underlying causes having something to do with nature refusing to stay at equilibrium, whereby the human experience logically requires awareness of disequilibrium. And since humans evolve from becoming infinitely disorderly to increasingly more orderly as a conscious choice, it may turn out to be that the more attention we pay to the geometry of our thinking, which in Synergetics, according to Albert Minster Fuller, May 5, 1974, informs us that, in quotes, physical universe abhors an equilibrium, end quote, in quotes, metaphysical universe can rely on it, end quote. Our anticipatory design science realities require an omnidimensional model, as we can study in Synergetics 420.04, end quotes, the vector equilibrium became the logical model of our omnidimensional omni-experience accommodation studies, end quote. It is relatively comforting, not only to feel assured there is a relevant set correlatively with thinking a thought, but also to learn that this term set is among a long list in Albert Minster Fuller Synergetics Dictionary under set. Imaginably, if the relevant set is readily at the tip of the tongue, the point of a pen, then logically so too is awareness of the 4 P's that go everywhere with a human being that in principle cannot omit one's own personality, psyche, perspective, philosophy, and the truth as stated by Albert Minster Fuller under imagination, which is that humans deal in images, trafficking in the memory sets, the TV sets, the recall sets, and certain incoming sets, of all of which derive from experience. In truth, therefore, there is no logical reason to carry tons of historical events, whether infrequent big events or frequent little ones, into our individual anticipatory design science realities as if defending its false premise enactments and reenacting articulations will improve the world for our progeny. Now, as we study in Synergetics 304, multiplication can be only by division, in quotes. There is no multiplication by amplification of, or addition to. Eternally regenerative universe, there is only multiplication by division. The furthermost star and the most unfamiliar physical phenomena are all accommodated by further arithmetical subdividing of our aggregate of overlapping experiences, end quote. That is, from subdivision of the minimum physical system, our ever-ready relevant set, the tetrahedron. While we might not see any use in learning, in quotes, there is no multiplication involved in the refractionation of minimum structural systems of universe, end quote. Reading of this induces intellect to look up the noun refraction in a dictionary to learn the phenomenon relates to a propagating light or sound wave passing from one medium to another. How does such information synchronize with consciously activating the relevant set and unsettled memories of Marshall McLuhan's 1967, in quotes, "The medium is the message"? Until next time, thank you. Gratefully, faithfully, eternally, Christina Herlufsen. Contact herlufsencristina@gmail.com.